The mining outpost on Callisto 7 was as lonely a place as any in the galaxy. Perched on the edge of a desolate moon orbiting a volatile gas giant, it felt more like a prison than a workplace. The endless gray landscape stretched out endlessly, broken only by jagged craters and swirling storms that danced across the horizon. For Lieutenant Marcus Hale, life here had become routine. Monotonous shifts, monitoring equipment, repairing drones, and staring at the same metallic walls day after day. But all of that changed one fateful evening when the sky lit up with an explosion brighter than anything he'd ever seen. Marcus was alone in the control room, sipping lukewarm coffee while scrolling through maintenance logs. The silence was interrupted by a sudden flash outside the reinforced glass window. At first he thought it might be another meteor shower, a common occurrence. But this light was different. It pulsed with unnatural intensity, casting eerie shadows across the barren terrain below. Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his helmet and headed for the airlock. Whatever had caused that burst of energy, it wasn't natural, and it was close. When he stepped onto the surface, the cold bit into him despite his suit's insulation. He activated his visor's thermal scanner and followed the trail of heat, signatures leading away from the base. After several minutes of trudging through loose regolith, he found it, a sleek, alien vessel partially buried in the ground. Its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting the distant glow of the gas giant above. Smoke curled lazily from cracks in its hull, evidence of recent trauma. Marcus approached cautiously, his pulse quickening with each step. This wasn't just some rogue asteroid or piece of space junk. It was alive. Before he could examine it, further a low hum emanated from within the ship. A hatch slid open with a hiss, releasing a cloud of vaporized ice. Out staggered a figure unlike anything Marcus had ever encountered. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her slender frame clad in flowing garments made of what appeared to be liquid metal. Her skin glowed softly, shifting between shades of blue and silver. Most striking were her eyes. They weren't solid but seemed to swirl with galaxies trapped inside them. For a moment they locked gazes, and Marcus felt as though she could see straight into his soul. Who are you?" Marcus stammered, instinctively raising his hands in a gesture of peace. His voice crackled over the comm system built into his suit. Instead of answering, the alien woman lunged forward, grabbing him by the shoulders. Her strength surprised him. Even through his bulky exosuit, he could feel the power in her grip. Telepathic words flooded his mind, sharp and fragmented. "You will take me to safety now." Her tone left no room for argument, but Marcus hesitated. "I don't know who you are or why you're here," he replied firmly. "But if you want my help, you'll have to explain." For a split second, her glowing skin flared crimson, and Marcus swore he saw sparks dancing along her fingertips. Then, just as suddenly, she released him, stepping back with an expression that could only be described as frustration, mixed with impatience. "My name is Lyra," she said aloud this time, her voice melodic yet tinged with irritation, "and I do not have time for your questions." Despite her obvious hostility, Marcus couldn't ignore the desperation in her voice, or the way her radiant form seemed to pulse with raw emotion. Something about her intrigued him, drawing him in despite the danger. Against his better judgment, he nodded. "All right, Lyra, let's get you inside before anyone else sees us." Back at the outpost, tensions ran high. Lyra refused to sit still, pacing the cramped quarters like a caged animal. Every question Marcus asked was met with either silence or biting retorts. Yet beneath her fiery exterior, there was something fragile. A sadness that lingered in her eyes whenever she thought no one was looking. Over the next few hours, fragments of her story began to emerge. She came from a distant world called Zinara, a planet known for its breathtaking beauty and advanced civilization. But peace had been shattered by war, pitting factions against each other in a struggle for dominance. Lyra, once a respected scientist, had defied orders when she uncovered evidence of atrocities committed by her own government. Now she was a fugitive, hunted relentlessly by those who sought to silence her forever. As Marcus listened, he found himself torn between fear and fascination. Lyra's presence disrupted everything he thought he knew about the universe and about himself. There was no denying the chemistry between them, though neither dared to admit it. Their conversations often devolved into arguments, with Lyra snapping at him for questioning her motives or doubting her intentions. But even in anger, there was a magnetic quality to her, something that made Marcus catch his breath every time her skin erupted into brilliant hues of red and gold. One particularly heated exchange occurred during dinner, a modest meal of rehydrated rations served in the mess hall. Frustrated by her refusal to share key details about the data core she carried, Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "How am I supposed to trust you if you won't tell me the whole truth?" Lyra's eyes narrowed, dangerously, and the air around her seemed to vibrate with barely contained fury. "Trust is earned, human," she shot back, her voice dripping with venom. "Not demanded." For a moment Marcus considered walking away. But then, almost involuntarily, he muttered under his breath, "You're beautiful when angry." Time froze. Lyra stared at him, her glowing complexion dimming slightly as if caught off guard. Then slowly, her lips curved into a hesitant smile, a rare glimpse of vulnerability beneath her hardened shell. It was the first time Marcus truly believed they might find common ground. By the end of the night, their relationship remained complicated, but undeniable progress had been made. As Marcus lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, he realized how much Lyra had already changed him. For years, he'd hidden behind duty and discipline, avoiding emotional connections. Yet here he was, risking everything for someone he barely knew. And strangely, he didn't regret it. Outside, the storms continued to rage across the moon's surface, mirroring the turmoil brewing within both of them. Little did Marcus know, their journey together was just beginning, and far greater challenges awaited them in the days to come. The next morning brought a fragile calm to the outpost. Marcus woke up early, his mind still replaying the events of the previous night. He couldn't shake the image of Lyra's glowing skin dimming and then flaring back to life when he'd said those unexpected words, "You're beautiful when angry." It had been an unguarded moment, something that slipped out before he could censor himself. Yet, it seemed to have cracked open a door between them, even if just slightly. Lyra was already awake when Marcus entered the main chamber. She stood by the viewport, gazing out at the swirling storms on the gas giant above. Her posture was rigid, but there was a softness in her expression that hadn't been there before. The faint luminescence of her skin pulsed gently, like waves, lapping against a shore. For a moment, Marcus hesitated, unsure whether to approach her or give her space, but curiosity got the better of him. "You didn't sleep," Marcus said quietly, breaking the silence. His voice echoed softly in the empty room. Lyra turned to face him, her galaxy-like eyes meeting his. "Sleep is not something I require often," she replied, her tone measured but less hostile than usual. "And when I do, it brings dreams I'd rather avoid." Marcus nodded, sensing the weight behind her words. He moved closer, stopping a few feet away so as not to crowd her. "Dreams about your world? About what happened?" Her gaze hardened for a brief second, but then she sighed, looking back toward the viewport. "Yes. Dreams of fire and loss, of faces I can no longer save." Her voice faltered, betraying a vulnerability she rarely showed. "But enough about me. We need to focus on repairing my ship." Marcus frowned. "Repairing it won't matter if we don't figure out where you're going next. You've told me bits and pieces, but nothing concrete. Who's chasing you? And why are they so determined to stop you?" Lyra hesitated, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the glass. Finally, she spoke, her words slow and deliberate. "My people. They were once peaceful. Zainara was a paradise, a place where science and art thrived together. But greed poisoned our leaders. They began using advanced technology for war, targeting neighboring systems to expand their power. When I discovered the truth, the lives destroyed, the planets ravaged, I tried to expose them. That's when I became a target." Marcus listened intently, his heart sinking as the full scope of her plight came into focus. So this data core you carry, it contains proof of everything? She nodded. Enough evidence to turn the tide of the war, if it reaches the right hands. But getting it there won't be easy. My pursuers will stop at nothing to destroy it. And me. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The gravity of her situation hung heavy in the air, mingling with the hum of machinery and the distant rumble of storms outside. Then Marcus straightened, determination etched across his face. All right, tell me what you need to fix your ship. I'll help you get it done. Over the next few days, Marcus and Lyra worked tirelessly to salvage parts from the outpost and repair her damaged vessel. It wasn't easy. The ship's design was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, relying on principles of physics that bordered on alien magic. Lyra guided him patiently, explaining concepts in terms he could understand while occasionally muttering under her breath about how primitive human technology was. Despite her occasional jabs, Marcus found himself enjoying the process. There was a rhythm to their collaboration, a sense of purpose that filled the void left by years of monotony on Callisto 7. Their shared meals became moments of quiet connection. One evening, as they sat side by side eating rehydrated stew, Marcus asked, a question that had been lingering in his mind. Why did you come here? Out of all the places in the galaxy, why crash land on this moon? Lyra paused, her spoon hovering halfway to her mouth. I didn't choose this place, she admitted. My ship's navigation system malfunctioned during the escape. I was trying to reach a neutral zone near the edge of Federation space, but she trailed off, shaking her head. This moon must have interfered with my trajectory somehow. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Interfered? How? It's complicated, Lyra said, her glowing skin flickering faintly. Let's just say your little rock has some unusual properties. Properties that might make it difficult for my pursuers to track me, at least for now. That revelation sent a chill down Marcus's spine. If Lyra's enemies were as relentless as she claimed, it was only a matter of time before they found her. And when they did, Marcus knew he wouldn't be able to protect her alone. As the repairs progressed, so did their bond. They began sharing, more than just technical details, stories of their pasts, hopes for the future, fears they'd buried deep inside. Marcus told Lyra about growing up on Earth, about joining the military to escape a broken home, and about how he'd ended up stranded on Callisto 7 after a failed mission. In return, Lyra opened up about her family, a husband and child lost to the war, and her guilt over surviving when so many others hadn't. One night, as they sat together watching the gas giant storms dance across the sky, Lyra turned to Marcus with an unreadable expression. Why are you helping me? She asked abruptly. You barely know me. You risked your life for a stranger. Why? Marcus considered the question carefully. Maybe because you remind me of myself, he said finally. Lost, running from something bigger than you can handle. Alone. He chuckled softly. Or maybe it's because you're impossible to ignore, even when you're yelling at me. To his surprise, Lyra laughed, a rich melodic sound that filled the room. Impossible to ignore, am I? She teased, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Perhaps you're right, though I suspect most humans would find my temper overwhelming. Oh, believe me it is, Marcus replied with a grin. But it's also kind of fascinating. Lyra tilted her head, studying him curiously. Fascinating? Most beings run from anger. They fear it. Maybe, Marcus conceded. But anger isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just passion wearing the wrong mask, like yours. Her smile faded, replaced by a look of quiet introspection. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of his words hanging between them. Then, almost imperceptibly, Lyra reached out and placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm, sending a shiver through him despite the layers of fabric separating them. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. Not just the anger, but everything beneath it. Marcus swallowed hard, feeling a lump rise in his throat. Any time. Despite these moments of connection, tension simmered beneath the surface. Lyra's temper remained a constant challenge, flaring whenever progress on the ship stalled or when Marcus pushed too hard for answers. One particularly frustrating day, after hours of fruitless work on the ship's propulsion system, Lyra snapped. Sparks flew from her fingertips as she vented her frustration, leaving scorch marks on the nearby wall. "This is pointless," she exclaimed, pacing furiously. "We're wasting time. Every second we delay, my enemies close in." Marcus stepped forward, holding his ground despite the crackling energy radiating from her. "And yelling about it isn't going to help," he shot back. "We'll fix it, Lyra, together. But you need to trust me." Her eyes blazed with fury, but instead of retaliating, she stopped mid-step, breathing heavily. Slowly, her skin shifted, from fiery red to a calming blue-green hue. "You're infuriating," she muttered, though there was a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "And you're beautiful when angry," Marcus quipped, unable to resist. This time Lyra didn't argue. Instead, she let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "You truly are an odd human, Marcus Hale." "Odd works for me," he replied with a wink. By the end of the week, the ship was nearly operational. As they ran final diagnostics, Marcus felt a pang of sadness knowing their time together was coming to an end. Whatever happened next, he knew their lives would never be the same. For now, though, they had each other, and a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could change the course of two worlds. Outside, the storms raged on, mirroring the chaos brewing beyond the horizon. But within the walls of the outpost, there was a newfound warmth, a bond forged in fire and tempered by trust. The calm that had settled over the outpost was shattered one morning by the distant hum of engines. Marcus and Lyra were in the middle of testing the repaired propulsion system when a series of blips appeared on the radar screen. At first, Marcus thought it might be another meteor shower or some glitch in the equipment, but as the blips grew stronger and more numerous, his stomach tightened with dread. "Lyra," he said sharply, pointing at the screen. "Do you recognize those signatures?" Lyra's glowing skin flared crimson as she studied the data. Her expression darkened. "They've found me." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Who? Your pursuers?" She nodded grimly. "Yes, and they won't hesitate to destroy this moon and everyone on it to get to me." Without wasting another second, Marcus sprang into action. "We need to hide your ship, now." Together, they scrambled to conceal the alien vessel beneath a pile of scrap metal and debris salvaged from the outpost's storage bay. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. Every second counted. As they worked, Lyra explained the situation in clipped tones. "These ships belong to my government's elite guard, a ruthless faction known as the Valeth. They're equipped with advanced weaponry and scanners capable of detecting even the faintest energy signatures. If they locate us, we'll have no chance." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Then we'll make sure they don't find us." The tension inside the outpost was palpable as the enemy ships drew closer. Marcus monitored their approach through the radar while Lyra prepared for the worst. She retrieved a small device from her damaged ship, a compact weapon unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Its surface shimmered like liquid light, and when she activated it, tendrils of energy danced along its edges. "What is that?" Marcus asked, eyeing the weapon warily. "A disruptor," Lyra replied. "It can temporarily disable most forms of technology, but it requires immense focus, and it drains my energy quickly. I'll only get one shot if it comes to that." Marcus nodded, though unease gnawed at him. He didn't like the idea of Lyra risking herself, especially not against forces far superior to anything they could handle. Still, there was no time to argue. The Valeth ships were now within visual range, their sleek forms cutting through the atmosphere like knives. "They're landing," Marcus announced, his voice tight with urgency. 2 kilometers east of here." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Good. That gives us a slight advantage. They'll expect resistance near the crash site, not here." "But what happens if they scan the area?" Marcus countered. "This place isn't exactly stealthy." Lyra hesitated, then reached out to touch his arm. "Trust me, Marcus. We can buy ourselves enough time if we act fast." Their plan was simple yet risky. While Lyra stayed behind to monitor the situation and prepare for an ambush, Marcus ventured outside to create distractions. Using spare parts from the outpost, he rigged several drones to emit false energy signals, drawing attention away from their location. As he worked, the cold reality of their predicament weighed heavily on him. If things went wrong, he doubted either of them would survive. Back inside, Lyra paced anxiously, her glowing skin flickering with every passing minute. She hated letting Marcus go alone, but she knew his knowledge of the terrain gave them their best chance. Besides, she couldn't afford to lose focus, not when so much depended on her keeping the data core safe. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life. "Lyra, it's working," Marcus whispered. "They're heading toward the decoys, but hurry, they'll figure it out soon." "I'm ready," Lyra replied, gripping the disruptor tightly. "Just stay safe." Minutes later, the Valeth arrived. Their movements were precise and calculated, sweeping through the outpost perimeter with military efficiency. Marcus watched from a distance as their scanners swept over the decoy drones, confirming their suspicions. The lead ship deployed a squad of armored soldiers, their weapons glowing ominously in the dim light. Inside the outpost, Lyra braced herself. She positioned herself near the entrance, her mind racing with possibilities. When the first soldier breached the door, she struck without hesitation. A single pulse from the disruptor sent shockwaves rippling through the air, disabling their weapons and scattering the intruders. But the victory was short-lived. More soldiers poured in, forcing Lyra to retreat deeper into the facility. Meanwhile, Marcus fought his way back to the outpost, dodging enemy fire as he moved. He knew Lyra couldn't hold them off forever, and he refused to let her face them alone. Reaching the main chamber, he found her cornered, her energy visibly waning as she struggled to maintain control of the disruptor. "Need a hand?" Marcus shouted, firing his own weapon at the advancing soldiers. Lyra glanced at him, relief flashing across her face. "About time you showed up." Together, they fought side by side, their combined efforts driving the Valeth back temporarily. But the battle was far from over. Reinforcements continued to arrive, and it was clear they were outnumbered. "We can't keep this up," Marcus panted, reloading his weapon. "We need a way out." Lyra nodded, her eyes locking onto the concealed alien ship. "There's only one option left. We make a run for it." With no other choice, they dashed toward the hidden vessel, dodging enemy fire and narrowly avoiding capture. Once inside, Lyra powered up the systems while Marcus manned the controls. The ship roared to life just as the Valeth closed in, unleashing a barrage of missiles that shook the ground beneath them. "Hold on," Lyra shouted, pulling back on the controls. The ship lifted off with a burst of speed, leaving the outpost and their pursuers far behind. As they soared through the atmosphere, Marcus slumped into his seat, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "That was close," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyra managed a weak smile. "Too close." For a moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of their escape sinking in. Then Marcus turned to her, his expression serious. "What now? Where do we go from here?" Lyra gazed out at the stars, her galaxy-like eyes reflecting the infinite possibilities ahead. "We find allies, people who believe in peace and justice, and we use the data core to expose the truth, to show my people that there's another way." Marcus nodded, determination hardening his features. "Then let's do it. Together." Outside, the storms raged on, mirroring the turmoil brewing across the galaxy. But within the confines of the alien ship, there was a newfound resolve, a shared purpose that bound Marcus and Lyra together. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. The alien ship cut through the void of space like a streak of liquid light, its sleek design leaving behind no trace of their escape. Inside, Marcus and Lyra worked in tandem, navigating the vast expanse between stars while evading detection from the relentless Valeth forces. The tension was palpable. Every blip on the radar felt like a potential threat, and neither of them dared to relax. Despite their narrow escape from Callisto 7, they both knew the worst was yet to come. Lyra sat at the helm, her glowing hands dancing across the controls with practiced precision. Her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the stress she carried. "We're running out of time," she murmured more to herself than to Marcus. "They'll regroup and send hunters after us, better equipped this time." Marcus leaned over a secondary console, studying the star charts displayed before him. "If we can reach that neutral asteroid belt ahead, we might have a chance to hide. There are thousands of ships passing through there daily. It's chaotic enough to lose ourselves in." Lyra nodded, though her expression remained grim. "It's risky, but it's our best option. Once we're inside, I'll transmit the data core's contents to as many independent networks as possible. If even one faction receives the information, it could spark a rebellion against my government." Marcus hesitated, his brow furrowing. "And what about you? What happens when your people realize you've exposed their secrets?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment, she looked away. "I won't survive this, Marcus. You know that." His heart clenched at her words. "Don't say that, we'll find a way." "No," she interrupted firmly, though her voice softened. "This fight is bigger than either of us. My survival doesn't matter if it means ending the war. But..." She paused, glancing at him with those swirling, galaxy-like eyes. "If I'm going to see this through, I need to know I'm not alone." Marcus swallowed hard, stepping closer until he stood beside her. "You're not alone, Lyra. Not now. Not ever." As they approached the asteroid belt, the ship's sensors picked up increased activity, not just civilian traffic, but military patrols as well. The Veilith had anticipated their move. Lyra cursed under her breath, her skin flaring red with frustration. "They're already here. They must have tracked residual energy signatures from my ship. Then we'll have to create a diversion," Marcus said quickly, his mind racing. "Something big enough to draw them away while you transmit the data." Lyra turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "You mean sacrifice yourself?" "It's the only way," he replied, his tone resolute. "I'll take one of the smaller drones and lead them off course. While they're chasing me, you can slip into the comm array undetected." For a long moment, Lyra stared at him, her glowing skin dimming slightly. Then, without warning, she reached out and grabbed his arm, pulling him close. "I won't let you do this," she said fiercely. "Not for me." "You don't get a choice," Marcus shot back, his voice steady despite the lump forming in his throat. "This isn't just about you anymore, Lyra. It's about stopping a war, about saving lives, including yours." Her grip tightened, and for a brief second Marcus thought she might refuse to let him go. But then slowly her hand dropped and she stepped back, her shoulders sagging with resignation. "If you die," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you die, I swear I'll make sure your sacrifice wasn't in vain." "That's all I ask," Marcus said softly, offering her a small smile. "Now, let's get to work." The plan came together swiftly. Marcus programmed one of the outpost's old maintenance drones to emit a powerful energy signal, mimicking the signature of Lyra's ship. He climbed aboard, strapping himself in as the countdown began. Before launching, he turned to look at Lyra one last time. She stood by the airlock, her radiant form casting soft light across the chamber. "Be careful," she said, her voice trembling. "Please." "I will," Marcus promised, though they both knew it was a lie. With a final nod, he activated the drone's thrusters and launched into space, leaving Lyra and the safety of the ship behind. As predicted, the Veilith forces immediately took the bait. Squadrons of enemy ships peeled away from the asteroid belt, pursuing Marcus with relentless determination. Explosions lit up the darkness as missiles streaked past him, forcing him to weave and dodge through the chaos. Despite the danger, Marcus couldn't help but feel a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, he was doing something that truly mattered. Meanwhile, Lyra navigated the asteroid belt with painstaking care, avoiding detection as she made her way to the communications array. The structure loomed ahead, a massive hub bristling with antennas and relay dishes. Docking stealthily, she disembarked and infiltrated the facility, using her disruptor to disable security systems along the way. Inside the control room, Lyra inserted the data core into the main console. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as the transmission began, broadcasting evidence of her government's atrocities to countless networks across the galaxy. Tears streamed down her face as she watched the process unfold, each byte of data carrying the weight of her people's suffering and her own. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Reinforcements had arrived, cutting off her escape route. Surrounded and outnumbered, Lyra prepared to make her stand, raising the disruptor with trembling hands. Just as the doors burst open, however, a familiar voice crackled over the comms. "This is Lieutenant Marcus Hale requesting immediate extraction. Coordinates attached." Relief flooded through Lyra as she realized Marcus had survived. Against all odds, he had returned for her. Minutes later, the two reunited aboard the alien ship, battered but alive. As they fled the asteroid belt, Lyra collapsed into Marcus's arms, her glowing skin pulsing erratically. "You came back," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Of course I did," Marcus replied, holding her tightly. "I told you, you're not alone." Outside, the storms raged on, mirroring the battle still to come. But within the confines of the ship, there was hope, a fragile yet unbreakable bond forged in fire and sacrifice. Together, they vowed to continue fighting, no matter the cost. The alien ship hurtled through space, leaving the chaos of the asteroid belt far behind. Inside, Marcus and Lyra sat in silence, their bodies battered, but their spirits unbroken. The transmission had been sent, and now all they could do was wait. Wait for the galaxy to respond, for allies to rise up against the oppressive regime of Zinara. Yet even as hope flickered faintly on the horizon, neither of them dared to let their guard down. They knew the Valith wouldn't stop hunting them, not until the truth was silenced or the war ended. Lyra leaned back in her seat, her glowing skin dimmed to a soft silver blue. She stared at the stars streaking past the viewport, her mind heavy with thoughts of what lay ahead. "It's done," she said finally, breaking the silence. "The data is out there. Now we see who answers the call." Marcus glanced at her, his expression guarded. "Do you think anyone will listen? Or will they just ignore it?" "They'll listen," Lyra replied firmly, though doubt lingered in her voice. "There are beings across the galaxy who crave peace, who've suffered under my people's tyranny. This evidence gives them a reason to fight back, but—" She trailed off, her gaze dropping to her hands. "What happens next depends on us, on whether we can stay alive long enough to rally them." Marcus nodded, determination hardening his features. "Then we keep moving. We find those who are willing to stand with us, and we prepare for whatever comes our way." Hours turned into days as they traveled deeper into uncharted territory, avoiding populated systems and staying hidden among the shadows of nebulae and derelict space stations. Along the way, reports began trickling in from various corners of the galaxy. Independent news networks picked up snippets of the leaked data, broadcasting horrifying images of destroyed planets and massacred populations. Public outrage spread like wildfire, igniting protests and rebellions in neutral zones and occupied territories alike. But with every victory came new challenges. The Valith intensified their efforts to track down Marcus and Lyra, deploying Hunter, fleets equipped with advanced tracking technology. It became clear that survival would require more than just luck. It would demand sacrifice. One evening, as they rested aboard the ship, Lyra noticed something unusual about Marcus. He was unusually quiet, his movements slower than usual. Concerned, she approached him. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. He forced a smile, but couldn't hide the exhaustion etched into his face. "I'm fine, just tired." "You're lying," Lyra said bluntly, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch sent warmth coursing through him, and for a moment he felt some of the fatigue lift. "Tell me the truth." Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. I've been feeling weaker since the asteroid belt. I don't know if it's stress or something else, but before he could finish, Lyra's eyes widened in realization. The disruptor, she whispered. When you saved me, you were too close to its energy field. It must have affected you? Marcus frowned. Affected me how? It drains life force, Lyra explained, her voice tinged with guilt. That's why I didn't want you to come back. You risked everything to save me. And now... She hesitated, tears welling up in her galaxy-like eyes. Now you're paying the price. Anger flared briefly in Marcus, but it quickly faded into resignation. If that's true, then I made my choice. And I'd make it again. Lyra shook her head, her glowing skin pulsing erratically. No, not this time. I won't let you die, because of me. Before Marcus could protest, Lyra placed both hands on his chest, closing her eyes as her skin erupted into radiant hues of gold and green. Energy surged between them, flowing from her body into his. Marcus gasped, feeling strength return to his limbs and clarity flood his mind. When she finally pulled away, her own glow had dimmed significantly, leaving her pale and trembling. What did you just do? Marcus demanded, his voice filled with panic. I healed you, Lyra replied weakly, sinking into a nearby chair. But it cost me. My energy reserves are almost depleted. Why would you do that? Marcus exclaimed, kneeling beside her. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, Lyra interrupted softly. Because you've given me so much already. Hope, courage, trust. You've reminded me what it means to care for someone beyond myself. If I hadn't acted, I would have lost the one person who truly understands me. Tears blurred Marcus's vision as he took her hand in his. You're wrong, Lyra. You're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, we face it together. Their resolve strengthened. Marcus and Lyra pressed onward, seeking refuge among rebel factions scattered across the galaxy. Each encounter brought new allies, scientists, soldiers, diplomats, all united by a shared desire for change. Together they formed a coalition dedicated to exposing the truth and dismantling the corrupt systems governing Zinara. Finally, the day came when they received word of a massive uprising near the edge of Federation space. Entire fleets had joined forces to confront the Vaylith, demanding an end to the war and accountability for past crimes. Knowing this was their moment, Marcus and Lyra prepared to join the battle. As they approached the front lines, Lyra turned to Marcus, her eyes shimmering with emotion. Whatever happens today, promise me one thing. Anything. Marcus replied without hesitation. Promise me you'll keep fighting, even if I'm not there to stand beside you. Marcus gripped her hand tightly, his voice unwavering. I promise, but you're not getting rid of me that easily. With a small smile, Lyra nodded, and together they charged into the fray. The battle raged fiercely, ships colliding and dazzling, displays of light and fire. Amidst the chaos, Lyra unleashed the full power of her disruptor, disabling enemy vessels and turning the tide in favor of the rebels. Marcus fought valiantly by her side, his actions inspiring others to push forward despite overwhelming odds. In the end, it was Lyra's bravery that sealed their victory. Sacrificing the last of her energy, she created a massive energy pulse that crippled the Vaylith flagship, forcing their surrender. Collapsing into Marcus's arms, her glowing skin dimmed to a faint flicker before stabilizing once more. As the dust settled and celebrations erupted across the galaxy, Marcus held Lyra close, vowing never to let her go. Their journey had transformed them both, forging a bond stronger than any force in the universe. Together they stood as symbols of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, unity and love could light the way to a brighter future.